Hello YouTube and welcome to Sci Prime Productions. I'm a new YouTube channel, so bear with me as I figure things out. Today, I thought I'd do a fun little experiment where I take a character from Critical Role's first campaign and try to reinterpret them as a Pathfinder 2nd Edition character. Now, before you run to the comment section, believe it or not, I'm psychic, and I know exactly what you're thinking. First of all, yes, I'm aware that Campaign 1 of Critical Role was originally a Pathfinder game before they started podcasting and switched over to D&D 5th Edition. But that was Pathfinder 1st Edition, and I'm using 2nd Edition, which is a different game. Secondly, I'm aware that D&D and Pathfinder are different games. I'm not recreating these characters exactly, I'm reinterpreting them. This is all just a little experiment to see how a character would look through a different lens. Like different artists drawing the same character, this is just a fun little project. Now, I want to get started as soon as possible, but a few ground rules right off the bat. 1. I'm going to make a character that works in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. This is not going to be a copy-paste job. I'm going to modify the character so that they work in Pathfinder. I'm not going to make a trash character that works in one system but not another. 2. I'm going to focus on the core of the character. I'm allowing myself to mess with stats, skills, weapons, and even classes, so long as the base character concept is intact. Some classes work different in Pathfinder than Dungeons & Dragons, so I'm going to have to shake things up. Don't worry, I will try and keep the base of the character the same. 3. I'm going to build him out to level 10 and without the free archetype optional rule. If you're a Pathfinder 2nd Edition fan, you know what this means. Otherwise, don't worry about it. 4. I'm going to allow access to the uncommon, rare, and even unique traits. The world of Golarion, where Pathfinder takes place, and the world of Exandria, where Critical Role takes place, are very different worlds, and what is common in Golarion might be uncommon in Exandria, and vice versa. 5. I'm going to make a unique background for each character I make based on their unique backstory. This is actually super easy in Pathfinder, and it follows a simple formula, and it's pretty hard to mess up. 6. I'm sure you saw the thumbnail. The character I'm going to be doing today is Percy de Rolo. I haven't listened to the entirety of the Vox Machina podcast, however, so I'm doing the animated version of Percy. Sorry to disappoint all of you all, but when the show came out, I didn't want to spoil myself on the plot, so I chose not to listen to the podcast. Oh, and number 7, this was made before the Pathfinder Remastered core rulebook came out, so technically this still uses the Pathfinder 2nd Edition pre-remaster rules. But most of it should still be applicable once Pathfinder 2nd Edition Remaster comes out. Lastly, remember, this is just a fun experiment. If you don't like what I did, feel free to post an alternate take in the comments below. Let's just try to keep things civil, yeah? There's no right or wrong answers here, just alternate takes on the same character. Now I'm going to be building the character out in Path Builder, a freemium online Pathfinder 2 character builder. On the left side of the screen, I'm going to be using Hero Forge to build out our version of Percy, so there's something interesting to look at. Oh, and absolutely one last thing. This part was scripted, but the build will not be, so please bear with me as I do some off-the-cuff broadcasting. Now, without further ado, here is how I would build a Pathfinder 2nd Edition version of Percival Frederickstein von Mussel Kowalski de Rolo III. I hope I got that name right. Alright, here we are in Path Builder. As you can see, I've built out Percy de Rolo as a first level character. I'm going to quickly go over everything he has. He starts off as a human, obviously. I've given him a special background. His background gives him the Society skill, which is an ability that lets Percy know about high society stuff. He also gains the Whitestone lore skill. This is a special skill that lets him know about specifically this town of Whitestone. Lore skills are very specialized skills that you can get in Pathfinder. He also has the Courtly Graces skill feat. This allows him to use society instead of diplomacy when in high society situations. I actually thought this was a great example of what Percy could have. If you recall, in Season 2, he tries to sweet talk a guard into letting them into a city using his diplomatic credentials, but of course, since it's not a high society enough scenario, it doesn't work. So, I thought that was a good example. Now, you may expect Percy to be a fighter because he was a fighter in Dungeons and Dragons, a fighter with the homebrew gunslinger class. But Pathfinder actually has a gunslinger class. So you might think that he should be a gunslinger. However, I think actually Inventor works best for him. The Inventor class is not quite as accurate with guns, but it allows them to take a gun and modify it in order to be a special gun that only they can use. It also has the unique ability of being able to build things without having blueprints. Normally in Pathfinder, to build something, you need the formula or the blueprint or the magical doohickey that tells you what to do. Inventors can just come up with their own blueprints and then build them. So Inventor here works really well for him. That's why I chose Inventor. If you want to build him out as a gunslinger, please leave a comment below and tell me how you would do it. Since he's a human, he gets 2 free ability boosts. That's essentially a +2 to his ability score. I chose Dexterity and Intelligence for him. Background gives him Dexterity and Intelligence again. Since he's an Inventor, he gets a boost to Intelligence. And then he gets 4 free boosts, but you cannot stack them. So I chose 1 into Strength, 1 into Con, 1 into Dex, and 1 into Intelligence, leading to these ability scores you can see right here. He has a sub-race in Pathfinder. I could have chosen any number, like half-elf, half-orc. He's obviously not those. I chose the Versatile Heritage. This just gives him the Quick Repair feat. Feats in Pathfinder, much more plentiful, but much less common than in D&D. Quick Repair just lets him repair things very quickly. He can even repair things in the middle of combat if his crafting skill gets very high, which it will. Haughty Obstinacy is effectively evasion, but for mind control effects. And that's a feat I chose for him. Built-in Tools is a class feature that I chose. Effectively, that just lets him have his tools in his pepper box, so they're always available. Alright, the big thing I chose for Percy, the reason he's an Inventor, is weapon innovation. This allows him to take a simple weapon, or any weapon, and be able to turn it into his special weapon, and it gives him the ability to modify it. So what I did was I chose a thing called the Air Repeater, which is essentially an airsoft gun, but it has the ability to shoot 6 times before being needed to reload, and you don't need to take an action to rotate the barrel or do anything like that. It's one of the few guns in the game that lets you shoot multiple times without having to futz with it. Now, normally it only does a d4 damage, but I gave Percy the modification, because it's his weapon innovation, to give him complex simplicity, because it's a simple weapon. The gun now does d6 damage and is versatile, piercing, or bludgeoning. So he can either throw piercing bullets in it or bludgeoning bullets. I also gave him a reinforced stock. This is basically just a reinforced hilt of his gun, which allows him to pistol whip people. He has a few other Inventor things. If you want to learn how Inventors work, go to Archives of Nethys. That's a website, and you can look up how Pathfinder Inventors work. A few other things. I gave him studded leather. There is an armored coat in the game, but it's not very good, so I just gave him some studded leather and called it an armored coat. You might notice that his armor class and his skills are pretty high. That's really just common for Pathfinder. In Pathfinder, you add your level to everything you're proficient in, so numbers get higher quicker. Alright, now I'm just going to quickly go over here and click on the level 10 version of Percy that we have and see how his stats have changed. He has Searing Restoration, which lets him basically press his white hot pepper box into somebody's wound, cauterizing it and healing it. Additional Lore gives him the ability to now know about gunsmithing. Toughness just gives him extra hit points. Megaton Strike lets his pepper box deal additional damage at the risk of breaking it. Clever Improviser makes him better even at untrained skills. Visual fidelity is a fun little thing. Basically, I decided that Pathfinder Percy's goggles are actually an invention that give him dark vision and low light vision. Magical crafting, Percy is actually just so good at crafting that he can make magic items even though he's not a spellcaster. Fleet just lets him move faster. Normally, humans have a 25-foot move speed. Percy now has 30, as you can see. Gigaton Strike, now when he uses Megaton Strike, he can knock people back. Crafter's Appraisal, he can now identify magic items, even though he's not magical, just because of his massive knowledge of all things crafting, he can identify magic items. Incredible Improvisation, once per day, he can boost his untrained skill checks even further. Normally these untrained skill checks like Deception and Diplomacy would be at like +2 or 3. I gave him pretty good Intimidation, as you can see. Reverse Engineer. Remember I said he can just make blueprints for items? There's some items he can't make blueprints for, but Reverse Engineer allows him to take an item, disassemble it, and make blueprints from that. Intimidating Glare, that lets him intimidate people without speaking. Very similar to when he puts on that Plague Doctor mask and is able to intimidate people just by looking at them. We're moving on over to his items that I gave him. He has now a +1 striking pepper box. This +1 gives him +1 to hit. Striking actually increases his damage to 2d6. That +2 there is because he's a high-level inventor. He gets just straight up +2 to damage. Something I forgot to mention, inventors, if they roll a high enough crafting check, can actually add their intelligence to damage, which is another reason I chose inventor for Percy. Adding his intelligence to damage seems like a great way to put intelligence in his repertoire. Iris of the Sky. This is basically his rifle Bad News. It is a rifle called a Jezzail. It does 2d8 damage because it's a striking Jezzail. It also has Fatal Aim D12. This means that if he wields it two-handed and he crits with it, these D8s become D12s and he adds an extra D12. So that's really nice. The Iris of the Sky is a unique weapon, and it lets him once per day get advantage on an attack roll. Advantage is very hard to come by in Pathfinder, so this just increases his chance of critting. And then his reinforced stock is now +1 striking, meaning he can pistol whip people if he happens to get into combat. Notice that the stock has the finesse trait, so he can use his dexterity to hit. I changed up his studded leather armor to be +1 resilient studded leather armor with the Glamored rune. This basically just means that he can now make it look like his badass long coat. Alright, really quickly, some of the last items he has on his list. Backpack with like bedroll, rations, flint and steel. That's pretty standard adventurer gear. He has a blast foot. This is a prosthetic foot that once per day can shoot out a blast. This is the closest thing Pathfinder has to his prosthetic hand that can shoot out electricity. So I figured just give him the blast foot, call it a blast hand. The prosthetic foot and a prosthetic hand in Pathfinder do exist, and they are basically the same thing. Brooch of Inspiration just gives him some bonuses occasionally, once per day, to skills. And Hat of Disguise. That is his Plague Doctor mask that he can put over his face to make himself look scarier. Alright, there you go. That is Percy de Rolo. If you like this, please like, comment, subscribe, and if you like this, maybe comment and tell me that you liked it, and I might do some more Critical Role characters in the future. Alright, thank you. Have a good day.